When something goes wrong in your life, how do you handle it? Do you get upset, stress out, start crying, and throw a fit? Or do you stop for a minute, take a deep breath, assess the situation, and reassure yourself that everything is going to be okay? It really all comes down to the tools that you keep in your emotional toolbox. And this is what we're going to talk about in today's episode. You'll hear from an entrepreneur and inspirational life coach who is an expert in this topic and will teach us how to own our power to step into who we are truly meant to be. And he will give us the emotional tools to navigate any situation that life throws at us. You're listening to the Positively Delighted Show, episode number 8. Welcome to the Positively Delighted Show. I'm your host, Kelsey Henry, and in this podcast, we'll be creating a positive mindset through inspirational interviews, music, stories, and exercises for building happy habits. Hey y'all, welcome to episode number 8 of the Positively Delighted Show. I'm recording this intro from my home state of Texas. I'm currently staying at my parents' house for the next few weeks and playing some shows in my hometown, so that has been super fun. I got back on Friday from my 2-week trek around the East Coast, and I'm planning out the next few months of projects and travel. The biggest project that I'm working on right now is my upcoming album release. I have been working on this album for the past year, and it will have 10 of my original songs on it. It's been 8 years since my first album came out, so I have a lot of music that I want to share with the world. 9 out of 10 of the songs will be going to mastering next week, which is the final stage of production, so it's all feeling very real, and this dream is coming to life, which is really cool. Now that I see it all coming together, I have been putting together my promotional strategy for the album release, and I can't wait to share these songs with all of you. In the next few weeks, I will start to record episodes for each of the songs. Every song on the album has a story and a lesson that I hope will leave a positive impact, including the song that inspired the message behind Positively Delighted. So be on the lookout for this in the next few weeks. Let's get into today's topic of owning your power and filling your emotional toolbox. I think this is such a cool topic, and I am so happy to introduce you to today's guest, Drew Bensen. Drew is an entrepreneur, public speaker, and inspirational coach. He is also a transgender man and a fierce lover of human connection and positive living. He is a certified infinite possibilities coach, trained under Mike Dooley from The Secret. Drew launched his writing career in 2017 by co-authoring a book called Positive Minded People. He has spent the last 2 years traveling the southwest edges of America full-time in a Winnebago RV with his dog, Ralphie. He is currently living in Seattle and leading his dog walking company called Close to Home, which he has been running for the past 10 years. Drew believes in living his most authentic life and empowering others along their path. Drew is an amazing inspirational coach, and I know this for a fact because I have been working with him since earlier this year. I wanted to have Drew cover these topics on the podcast because we've spent a lot of time covering this in our coaching sessions, and it's made a huge impact on my life. We recorded this episode about 2 months ago when I was in the midst of some major changes in my life and business, and it was all in perfect timing because Drew was right there by my side to teach me how to navigate making decisions and stepping into my power. Drew has this aura of positive energy that surrounds him, and his presence clearly states, "I know who I am." In this episode, he shares his own personal journey of the disconnect between knowing who he was and who the world saw him as. He also talks about his battle with anger and how he was able to understand and make peace with his emotions to truly own his power and step into his best life. Drew has some great advice for emotional tools that we can use to navigate any situation and stories to illustrate these points. So let's get into the interview with Drew Bensen. Drew, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
So excited to have you. I know that we met last year at the RV Entrepreneur Summit. And I feel like this show so far has been like a nice little advertisement for the RV Entrepreneur Summit because I just keep talking about it. But I remember we met and I think we had maybe like one conversation. It's like real quick. And then we connected on Facebook afterwards and we had like this one super inspirational phone call. So a few months later, I remember that. And I was just like, wow, this person
Absolutely.
Drew has like so much energy. Like I can feel it through the phone. Like I want more of it. And then I know that like this year we talked so much more. And then I heard that you were offering coaching and I was like, sign me up. I want a piece of this coaching program.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad that you did. Well, I remember meeting you. Maybe it was like the beginning, like first party or something, like the meet and greet maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And you were performing.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if I met you, but that's when I first saw you. You were performing. And I was standing up there watching you, singer-songwriter, playing your guitar. And people are mingling. And I stood there, I was watching. And I love that. I love watching, live music. And I was standing next to this woman and happened to be your mom.
Oh.
And so we were chatting. Yeah, and we were chatting about you and your, art and all that. And then you had your cards you do, and it was just really great. And I think I was actually leaving. I was only staying for an hour, and then I was driving into Austin to see a friend that was in town performing music. So I only got to see like a little bit. And I thought, wow, that's really neat. And I was inspired by your story. And then we, connected a little bit after that. And I love to just have conversations with folks. If somebody's drawn to me to have a conversation or I'm drawn to them, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And so if I can, I show up for it, and usually something magical happens in it. And you get both sides get something out of it. And that's what I think happened on the phone call after that first time we met.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw you again in this year in Texas, your mom was there as well. Your family had come as well. And the Entrepreneur Summit is so inspirational. And I don't know if they use this, but I was thinking about this the other day. I'm sure people have said this, but it's a group of really driven people.
Mm-hmm.
Get it?
I get it. Because you have an RV. At first I was like, yeah, they're really driven. I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, let's go.
Sometimes I'm so dense. Like I said that once and somebody goes, really? And I was like, oh,
driven people.
I mean, because it's ridiculous how driven people are in that group. It's almost where you're like, can I keep up? And and then seeing you this year, it was just really great. And these conversations, like I said, both sides get something out of it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's just conversation, and it's just listening and showing up for each other in that conversation. So I have enjoyed it very much.
Yes, me too. Well, I think one of the things too of why other people are so drawn to you and why I was drawn to you was because you just have this amazing energy of just like, this is who I am. This is who I am, and this is my energy. And like, you can have a piece of it, but only if I want you to. You're just like, wow, this is a powerful person right here. So that's one thing that I kind of wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about that and how you got to be this way. Like let's talk about your story here.
Well, thank you for that. I have been practicing that, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I have lots of different levels and layers to my story. But how I've been able to, you're absolutely right. It is on my terms. Mm-hmm. I learn how to say no and have those hard conversations maybe, or the hard no conversation, and be able to say, who I'm showing up for. It's tough. I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice, that something happens and you're in it. But for the most part, I get to choose, part of the last year and a half of being in the RV and driving around and doing this journey I'm doing. A year prior, maybe 6 months to a year prior, I had this feeling to go around, travel around. I called it the inspiration station. There's already somebody with that name, but I called it that in my head. And it was like, go around and inspire people. Like I was just driven to do that. And then I realized, well, you also, I think, need some inspiration, buddy.
Yeah.
Don't be trying to just, project on other folks. And so, I got the RV, it all worked out very smoothly. I got the RV and started traveling around and realized that I'm, just me and my dog. So I have the privilege of being able to choose who I spend time with. So that's a key thing. If you're in one place and you're going to the same job, like especially with jobs, you don't always get to choose who interacts with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so in this position, I often get to choose who I interact with, who I go see, who I allow, quote unquote, allow around me. So that's a unique situation right there. But part of, I don't know how deep you want to go with the story, but part of my story and being able to have the perspective of the positive perspective and then the boundaries is, well, my age too. I'm 45. You don't have to be 45 to have that. Yeah, but I am. And, when I was like 35, 36, I realized that I needed to change my gender.
Yeah.
And so, late in life, I came to that realization. It wasn't like it just was the first time I thought of it, but it was the first time it really hit me.
I mean, you think about this for a while, and it kind of set with you?
Well, yeah, I mean, as a kid, I knew that. And then so everybody has things that as a kid they wanted to be, or they knew they were, or they, whatever it is. And then you sometimes bury them, whether it's, I want to be an artist, or I want to be, whatever it is. And you think you have to do other things for whatever reason. Yeah. And so when I finally realized it, the way I say it is you can't unknow it. You know it, and then you go, okay, whether it's you fall in love, somebody dies, whatever the thing is, when you find something that's that intense and you can't pretend like you don't know anymore. So that happened. And so then I realized, well, you can either continue struggling and being mad about it, or you can, have a new perspective. And so I decided to have a different perspective. And so that's when my life switch started to happen, because not only was I going to change physically, but I was also changing my perspective. And that, I think, had made the difference in my life right now. Not the transition, but my perspective change. Mm-hmm. And so, part of your mission, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is positively living. So living from a positive perspective. Yeah. Right? So we have the same disposition, the same goal, I guess, is to try and find the positive. Is it positive every day? No. Is everything rainbows? No. Yeah. But it's trying to find the perspective and having the tools to do it. And so I'm not sure if that kind of stays in line with your question or where you wanted to go with that. But
well, absolutely. And I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, along that line, when you knew that you wanted to change your gender, it's kind of like that, those like 35 years before that, how did it feel to know you're like, I know who I want to be, but it's not what everyone sees me as?
So here's the thing. You know who you are, and you don't think about it with words. You just live. You're like, here I am. I'm over here playing with Star Wars. Life's awesome. I'm going to ride my dirt bike. And then other folks or other things outside of yourself persuade or set up your life. So whether it's environmental things, wealth, poverty, abuse, healthy family relations, whatever it is, it's forming your outside world, right? So for me, like, I was just rocking my life as a kid, right? And then when you start to realize, oh, there's certain rules, you're supposed to behave a certain way. It happens to every single person, not just somebody who's transgender. It happens to girls most often. Like, you're supposed to be a certain way. And boys, you're supposed to be a certain way. You're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to be whatever. So then you realize, oh, there's rules. I have to follow these rules. And that happens either subconsciously or just socially. It happens to every single person. And you either fall in line with the rules or you don't. And so for me, I realized very young, oh, I'm supposed to be a certain way. Okay, that's okay. And I just, like, I'm a people pleaser. So I want to follow the rules. And I don't like to be told what to do. Yeah. But I like to follow the rules. It's very, very entrepreneurial.
Like contradictory.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, I want to make my own rules, but I want to follow rules, or I want you to follow whatever. I want to get in trouble is the thing. And so I would, just fall in line with that. And then I like to be liked. I like to be loved. I'm very sensitive. And so, although I'm strong and I can stand up to people, it takes armor to do that. Yeah. Because I'm really sensitive. So as a kid, I don't think I had the strength although I had the strength to stand up for a lot of things, and I stood up to bullies and things like that, but I didn't have the strength to stand up for myself and understand what that was. So I just was rocking my life and kind of falling in line with that. And then as a young adult, I realized, so I imagine I was a female at the time. And as a young adult, I, realized I liked women. And I realized women who were more feminine could like women. And I thought, well, then I guess I'm gay. This is what I'm doing. When you find people you like in like love wise, then you other things kind of fall off. So any person can relate to this. When you realize, oh, I really like that person, you kind of don't care about some other things. Yeah. You kind of just, and so sometimes, when you have things that you don't want to face yourself, then you focus on other people. So I focused a lot on other people for a long time in my life and people pleased. And I just really love to help people, as you can see with the way I am right now. Yeah. And so I focused on that. And then when I couldn't any longer, so what happens sometimes in life is that you get pushed so far, whatever it is, and it's your limit. In life, everybody has their limit, I think. Yeah. And you get pushed to that, and then you make a decision on what you're going to do at that moment. So I think for me, that's what it was, is I finally was like, why am I so angry? What? This isn't me. And I started seeking out why. And I started going to therapy and going, why? And then when you start asking why, you got to be prepared for the answers.
Oh, that's a good nugget of wisdom right there. If you're going to ask the questions, you got to be prepared to take the answers.
Kelsey, I call it walking through the mud. And in that time, I knew I was walking through the mud, and I couldn't go over it, around it, or anything like that. I had to
go through it.
I had to go through it, and I had to just keep going through it. And it's the only way I could get to the other side. If that, keep up with that. So, yeah.
And so what conclusion did you come to when you walked through the mud?
Well, I realized, oh my gosh, you are a boy. You're so mad because you're so angry that people don't see you for who you are. Yeah. And that because men and women are treated differently. I know this for a fact because I've lived both lives, and I've seen and felt and how you're treated, and you're just treated different. And I was like, just being me, but I was being treated like a girl. I don't know how to explain it any other way. Yeah. What I realized is I can't go on any longer. And I'll tell you the truth. When I realized it, I thought, since a S word, I was like, oh man, like anything but that. No, because I knew it meant I had to go through something really hard to get to the other side. And I've been through so much at this point that I thought, not only do I have to go through it, but every person I know has to go through it. And I thought, so I had a few moments with that feeling. And then I said, I'm doing it. And I called my mom and went through the whole process with that. But I knew I couldn't go on any longer. And if I didn't do something, I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And if anybody's been in a position where they've had to do stuff that they just wasn't right, it wasn't right in their soul, it wasn't right in their anything. And they just, well, I just got to keep going, and they finally say enough. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the thing is. This just happens to be my thing. And frankly, it has nothing to do with anybody else, really. Like it's, people that love me and are in my life went through it with me, but it doesn't have anything to do with a stranger. Like my life doesn't have anything to do with them. Their life doesn't have anything to do with me. But we all have stuff that we get pushed so far that we're like, we can't do that anymore. And that's what happened with me. And I just decided to make this change. And I'll tell you what, my life is exponentially better. And so are everybody around me. It's been remarkable. And I can't even remember the old way. I can't. And I mean, it's just been amazing.
That's wonderful. And so when you were going through that transition, I mean, I'm really just also interested in like, right as that point where you had that conclusion, you're like, you made the decision, I'm going to do this. How did it feel when you finally just owned that and you're like, no matter what, I'm doing it? Did you feel relief? Did you feel empowered? Scared?
Terrified, out of my mind. But also when I finally accepted it myself, I was like, oh, and I don't remember this. My mom told me a few months ago after the book came out. Like, and I wrote about my talk with my mom. She reminded me of something I didn't remember saying to her, which was, Mom, I figured it out. I figured it out. And she's like, what did you figure out? I'm like, I figured it out. I'm actually a boy. That's this whole thing, is that I feel like a boy. And that's why I'm so mad and confused, is because everyone's treating me like this girl, but really that's not who I am. And it doesn't make any sense when people hear that and they don't know what this is like to be me.
Yeah, they're like, what?
It sounds weird. It sounds like, I'm really a boy. It sounds weird, but I mean, not only use the word weird, but it's a different thing to hear.
Well, yeah, because it's not something that you hear every day. It's not something that most people can relate to.
Right. And even for me hearing it, I'm like, oh, what? So that's what happened with me. I was like, Mom, that's what it is. Like, that's what this has been, because I felt like the mystery was solved. And then when I, started going through meeting doctors, when I finally got testosterone, they agreed to do it. You have to go to therapy. There's all these rules, but when I got it and the doctor gave me the testosterone, I was like, so imagine you just you're cold maybe physically, and then you get warm water. It was like warm water. And I was like, oh, okay, this is right.
Yeah.
And then when I had my first top surgery, I was like, oh, yeah, most things were right in the world. Like, it was just like, oh, like, it's so wild. Like, I just felt at peace. Here's the thing. Like, my mom was saying to me the other day, I mean this in a positive way towards my mom, but she was like, see, there's not everything is positive. There's always, something that I said, Mom, I don't think everything's positive in life and everything's like rainbows. I'm transgender. I have hardships in life. Like, I have all these things I've had to overcome. I choose to not dwell on them. I choose to not point them out. I choose to not live in that space. I live in the space where anything's possible. And if I'm having a hard time, like, use the tools to navigate it. But I feel I'm living in a space where I feel very lucky to be me.
Yeah.
But if you were to put on paper, yes, it was very hard to get to this point. Yes, it was. There are hardships I've had to overcome to get here, but I'm not mad about it, and I'm not a victim about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I feel like there's so many times in life where you have the opportunity to be stuck in victim mode, or to decide to own whatever it is that you're going through or you have been through and just move on. And it's hard to, I don't know, each path, like, it's a choice, but it's hard, when you have emotions, you have this like physical change that happens to you, and you have to be in control of yourself to be able to change the direction of your emotions.
Wow, absolutely. And I mean, if we can speak to this, that's what we talk about is navigating situations. That's all this stuff is, that really got me here, was being able to assess the situation as best you can. You can't do it right away. Sometimes it takes you a minute, but assess the situation, the feeling, the situation, and then navigate the best way through it. And like you said, being aware and in control of your emotions. It doesn't mean being dull or not having emotions, but being in control of your emotions to navigate through it. Our reactions, I guess. So, we can relate this to any person's life. Yeah. Any situation you're going through, and not one is harder than the other. My life isn't harder than somebody who, is a trust fund kid. We just have different things we've been through, but all of our perspective is, our own experience.
Along those lines of being able to control your own emotions, I know that that's something that we've talked a lot about in our coaching. And I had a situation that happened last weekend, and I totally thought of you, like, in the midst of this. So I went floating the river in New Braunfels with my cousins and family for my cousin's bachelorette party. And I don't know why, but in my mind, when I've never floated the river before, I thought that meant we were going to be on a boat. And I don't know why. I was like thinking about pontoon boating, I'm just like, oh yeah, we're going to drink beers and sit on a boat. It'll be fine. We won't be in the water. And then we got the tubes, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And I wasn't even thinking about it until we got like 2 hours into the float. And we were starting to have a lot of trouble with like low water, and it was really windy. So we were actually moving backwards, and it was a lot of effort to keep paddling. I'm looking around, I'm kind of by myself, and I'm like, I just remembered that I have a fear of open water. And I had this thought, and I was like, well, I mean, we're 2 to 4 hours away from the end of this river. And I'm realizing now, like, I'm afraid of the open water. I don't know why this hadn't come to my attention before, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. There's literally nothing. Like, I could freak out about it and make it worse. And then I kind of did a little bit, and then I flipped myself over in the water and I got all wet. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy this river. That fine, river. If I get upset and you're just gonna dump me in the water, I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm just gonna be fine about it. And
wow.
And I was just like, I could be upset. And we even like saw a snake in the water. And what I'm afraid of is like the creatures in the water. And I saw a snake. And after that, I was just like, well, there's literally nothing I can do. I can't get out. I can't go back. So I have to keep going. And I just kind of made that decision. And I was like, I could spend the next few hours feeling really angry at having to be here. But it's my cousin's bachelorette party. And I'm here by choice with my family to enjoy this and celebrate her. So it's not going to make her feel good if I feel bad. And it doesn't have anything to do with her. So I need to just be in a good mood, or else I'm just going to have a crappy day. So I just kept going. And then eventually we hit the end, and it was fine.
Wow. And how do you feel about all that?
I feel really good because I was literally in the water for like 6 hours. I have never gone more than knee deep in open water before. Like I've been in a tube, but I've never like gotten out. And I was like literally pulling like 8 girls at one point through the water. I was pretty proud of myself.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And so what was different before when you started that? So before you started it and now, like what changed? What was the only thing that was different?
I think honestly, like going into it, I feel like I just was a lot more braver and more confident in general. So it didn't really occur to me to be afraid. And then when I was in there, I was like starting to get into a bad mood, and I just kind of noticed it. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. And I did a Drew move, and I just took that emotion and I grabbed it out of my soul, and I just looked at it and I was like, do I want this? Is it serving me? No. And I just threw it away.
Oh, wow.
So
that's amazing.
just didn't want it.
That's amazing. So the only thing that changed really from hearing this is your perception, like your thoughts about it. Like
exactly.
Wow.
And I'm sure there were all kinds of things swimming under me that whole time. And if I had made a choice to find them, I would have found them. And also I think my thought too, in my mind, I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen right now? And I'm like, I would get bit by a snake. And if that were to happen, what would I do? Well, I would like run to the nearest resort and get out of the water. Or my group would like pull me off. Like we would do something about it, but I'd probably live. Most likely. It's probably not a dangerous snake. Probably going to be okay. So, I mean, there's not really, like, the water is so low, it's not like I'm going to drown. I'm not afraid of drowning. The only thing that could happen is I could get bit by a snapping turtle or bit by a snake. And at that point, like, I'll just do something about it. But, like, it's probably not going to happen. Also, I'm paddling so much, they're probably not going to come near me. So I might as well just not worry about it.
Wow. That's quite amazing.
That's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. So to pull it into what you said on the kind of coaching calls is that basically it's, if you imagine it like a backpack or a suitcase or a toolbox, is it we fill this bag, this toolbox, this backpack with all the things we need, you know, and to get to navigate any situation, just like you would an emergency kit, right?
Yeah.
My grandma always made the earthquake emergency kits in California.
Yeah.
So you put in there everything that you need in case there is an emergency or you need it.
Yeah.
So basically you've been filling this kit, you know, with tools of what you need. And one of them is, you know, assessing the situation, like getting present with it. You know, and you have now been actively working on this to where you were in a situation that was one of your deepest fears.
Yeah.
Which usually people get lost in. You just go down that road or that river, literally, and you can't figure it out until you're done and then you look back at it. But you were able to stop in the middle of it and go, wait a minute. So you had your tools right then, and you were able to figure out which one you needed. You know, and sometimes those tools, as we've found in the past, have been, I need to phone a friend, right? I need to get someone else to help me because I can't figure out which one to use. But you used the ones that you had. That is amazing. And, you know, in these talks, what we've, I think, both found is that if you're not learning from each other, then I don't think it's a real learning situation. If I'm just preaching or teaching, but you know, whenever you experience these things and you use these tools, it teaches me something as well, and it's wonderful. It's really been so rewarding to hear this today, and then just to work with you in general, with what you've been able to do.
Thank
I mean,
you.
would you say that you did that with your tools? Yeah.
Yes, I would say that I dug into my subconscious emotional toolbox and I pulled these out and I put them to work.
You did.
I did,
I mean, and sometimes in that toolbox is like a superhero cape, or, you know, like pulling everybody else through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like pulling. Also, because that was my thing where I was like, at first, I'm like, I'm not going to pull anyone. I'm afraid of open water. I'm not going to get out. But then after a while, it was like, my fear of being in the water, it's either like, okay, I could either be afraid and be in the water longer, or I can be brave right now and be in the water a lot less. So I was like, I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to pull these 8 girls' tubes as far as I can, and then I'm just going to get out.
Wow. Okay, so here's the moment where we apply this to something else. So that's the exact same thing you do as a boss. So, you know, I own a company, and you know, as a leader or a boss, or in a relationship. I mean, in any situation that's going to be tough, is you have that, I forget who is it. It was a movie, I think. You have that 10 seconds of insane bravery.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard of that.
Right. Or you have that moment where you can be really brave and you can do this thing right now. Or you can be in the yuck and the muck longer.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about this. You can have those hard conversations now, right this second, or as soon as possible, or you can just let them keep going and just be in this yucky, mucky stuff for longer periods of time. I mean, it's the same concept, really.
And I think with those hard conversations, a lot of like what I've been hearing from like the books I've been reading and like our conversations and listening to my Jack Canfield training program, one of the things is like, I mean, we complain to everyone about our problems except for the person we're complaining about. We never tell them, and they're the only person that can do something about it. Like Jack Canfield makes a joke where he's like, yeah, I go to work and I complain about my wife, and then I go home to my wife and complain about my coworkers. You know, like neither of them can do something about the other.
Right.
So it's like, if you don't tell anyone, then there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
So I think it's just like being brave enough to have those conversations. But I also do feel like there's a certain way you can go about them. So can you give some advice on like how to go about those hard conversations in a way that's like honoring you, but honoring the other person in a kind way?
Well, it's tough. And I think I'm still learning every day too. And I'll tell you, 3 years ago, I wasn't having these hard conversations. Which is so funny, but I didn't know I wasn't. And so you can apply this to work. You can apply this to being a boss, being a leader. You can apply this to being an employee. You can apply it to your family and relationship. I mean, there's every section of life you can apply this to. So part of it is understanding. Well, first of all, like not taking it personal either. And understanding boundaries and doing your self-development, all that. But let's say, for example, this is going to be just a random example without giving out anybody's information. So I was traveling from Yosemite, actually down California, and I was stopped off at a place, and I was stopping to work at this RV resort. It was a nice place with a really nice restaurant. And the last night I was there, I sat inside. I don't drink, so I'm sober. But I sat inside at the bar to watch the hockey game, and I was actually at the bar, pulled up to the bar, and I was chatting up the bartender, who was a really lovely person, and told me all about how the real dream is being a nurse, which of course that made total sense. So we had this one of those conversations I have with folks, which is this universal, connection of like this deep talk that neither of us will ever forget.
Yeah.
Well, next to me for the last hour and a half was this gentleman who was probably in his 60s, 70s. And he had been drinking quite a bit, and he was talking the entire time to folks, and he had a lot of opinions. And his opinions weren't really in line with my opinions.
Yeah.
I could hear him, but that's whatever. It's his life. Like, he's doing his thing. And, at the end of the night, the other folks had left, and he turned to me and was like, "So what's your story?" And I said to him, no.
Yeah.
I don't have the energy or interest to have this conversation. Right?
Yeah.
I said, "It's a hard no." He goes, "Okay." I said, I can't do it. And here's the thing. And I didn't insult him. I said it as kind as I could, but I said it as direct as I could.
Yeah.
Because it was not going to turn out well.
Yeah. You just
if I had just tried to like have that conversation, because I had heard him for the last hour and a half, and it wasn't going well with anybody else.
Yeah.
And I just said, no. Here's my boundary was no. And I gave him respect. I said, all right, you take care, buddy. Like, the end of the night when I left, and I wasn't disrespectful to him, but I just said, I can't do it right now. No.
Yeah.
I know how sensitive I am, and how I can, if I'm not not careful, but if I'm not aware, I can absorb people's energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that about myself. All these years I would get, when someone would get mad, and I would get mad too, and I would equal their tension or their rage.
Yeah, like, what is this?
Or their whatever. And I'm like, where is this coming from? I didn't realize and it sounds kind of weird to even say it, but I didn't know I absorbed their energy. So I would have not meshed well with him.
Yeah.
Being, in that moment. And by me being able to tell him no, it's so empowering, but it also, like, it was true.
Yeah.
Was it easy? No. But I was honest with him, and I just said no. And he actually he understood it in his state. Was like, okay, and moved on. Yeah. And so that was a very simple, like, example, but it's universal. You can use it in any way.
Yeah.
In any avenue. Like, just being able to literally, Kelsey, I've practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. And then there's folks that you have a hard time doing that with, because they're the ones that are closest to you, right?
So it's so hard to say no sometimes.
I'll tell you what, I have gotten amazing at it. I say yes way more, but I've gotten amazing at the no's.
Yeah. Well, also, I heard recently this quote that said, if you can't say no, your yes means nothing.
It sure means a whole lot less. It has a lot less value, doesn't it?
Yeah, because, like, you may be agreeing to things that you don't really want to do, which means that you might get resentful, and the other person just asked, like, they may not have even expected you to say yes.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, like you said, most people don't want people to do things they don't want to do.
Exactly.
I really did have to practice that. And I think when I first started to not drink, that's when I started learning it, where I would say, I can't go to that party. And it wasn't because I didn't want to go. I wouldn't feel comfortable there. It wasn't and so by saying, and by saying no, I would just be like, no, I'm not going to, and you feel bad at first, but you actually do my practice. I can't do that, but I can do this.
Yeah. Do something else.
Right. And so I think it's like I said, just really practicing it, and there's guilt and all those things involved.
Yeah.
But if you can stop and just really think about it, like, if you're being true to what's right for you, it's going to be what's right for other people. If more people did that, if they did would I want someone to come with me to Mexico on a trip if they really didn't want to come?
Yeah.
Please do me a favor. Don't come. If I wanted to, spend the weekend with 12 friends, and 2 of them were pissed that they were there. Oh, please don't come.
Yeah.
I'll do something else with you. Don't bring your energy.
In some situations, like, say, for example, a friend and I are going to have dinner that night and I'm really not feeling it. I'm just not feeling good. I really just want to go to bed. Usually I'll just kind of like send them a message, be like, hey, how are you feeling today? And they're like, oh man, I had a really hard day. I kind of just want to go to bed. I'm like, dude, me too. Let's just go to bed and then have dinner tomorrow. Yes. Why did we not think of this sooner? So like sometimes both people like maybe like they really want to see each other, but they're both like, oh man, it was a really hard day. So if you communicate with them, you can usually find another compromise, or the other person's usually going to be understanding, and you're going to have a much better time tomorrow when you feel better.
I think you're right, being true to it. And so sometimes also like there are things of social anxiety and things like that. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you and I talked about this, which was the energy and protecting your energy. So before I realized that, I would go, get so drained, hit a wall. Okay. So I had to start realizing, wait a minute, what is this about? Oh, you have to be aware of your energy and almost be sacred with it.
Yeah. And what did that feel like when you hit that wall and you're like, I don't have anything left to give right now? What does that feel like?
It just depends on the scenario. So it could be work and you're just exhausted and then you just do not care. Mm-hmm. Okay. It could be that. It could be in a relationship you give and give and give and give and give and give. And then you get resentful or you get mad or you get angry or you get emotional and you blame. A lot of it turns outwards. Like I'm blaming them because I'm giving. So I think it's Oprah who has on the wall in her, I don't know if she still does, in her office or her like facility when you go in, where it says you are in charge of the energy you bring into this room.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Something like that. And so we are in charge of our own lives. We're the CEO of ourselves. We're in charge of our own energy. We need to know how to manage, in my opinion, ourselves. So if I am drained, I need to be able to find ways to make myself more rested or fulfilled. Mm-hmm. It's not somebody else's. It doesn't matter if they're your spouse, your whatever. It's not other people's, relative. Mm-hmm. It's not their responsibility to take care of us in that way. We have to learn, in my opinion, how to what's best for us. Mm-hmm. So if everybody did that, so let's just say for me, if I did that, I'm going to have better relationships with my parents, with my siblings, with my partners, whoever, because I'm doing what I need for me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean selfish. It means self-care. They're different things. Yeah. And I think that in my life, I have not done that. And so I can speak to it because I have not done it and blamed. Yeah. Not done it and blamed.
Yeah.
And then, so how does it feel to be drained like that? I just want to go to bed.
Yeah.
I don't want to, talk to anybody right now. I'm exhausted. And so, you know what I do sometimes? I say, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. It's 6:00 and I'm beat. Oh, okay. Or guys, I can't come out and see it this weekend. I'm just beat. I can't do it. Whatever it is. I mean, there's a difference between blowing people off for better plans. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between being irresponsible with relationships and being disrespectful to relationships and doing something that's more fun or something like that and blowing people off and saying I physically or emotionally or mentally can't do this right now. How do we do instead of just being defensive when it happens, how do we turn that into the offensive game? How do we be proactive? Because that's how you stop the patterns. So Kelsey, do you remember when we talked, I think last week, about patterns? If we can recognize the patterns, then we can see, oh, I can change this pattern. If you don't recognize the pattern, then you can't change it. But if you say,
absolutely.
Right. So let me recognize this pattern that I'm doing and see if I want to, or if I can change it. So what can we do different? Okay. For me, what can I do different? Well, you can start by not looking at your phone the second you wake up. You can start by maybe meditating or walking my dog Ralphie, or whatever it is, so that I am not working from the second at 6 a.m. that I wake up till 6 p.m. or whatever it is. Like, so that I'm so drained that I don't have room to, talk with my grandma on the phone. To, right? Yeah. Like, what can I do on my side to take care of myself so that I'm not completely drained?
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
Everybody's answers are going to be different. It's going to be what's right for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. It's just more tools to put in your emotional toolbox.
Yep.
And with that, I think with the patterns, I think this is something that I kind of went through like last year as I was like looking through my life, and you look at the patterns, you say, okay, these patterns have happened in my life, and you have to kind of take responsibility for them, because it's easy to say, oh, these patterns just keep happening in my life. I don't know why. But then you look at it and you're like, okay, well, one, I let them happen. So now that I have identified that, I've owned that, what can I do next time to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that, with the owning and protecting your power, what else can you do to protect your power? So if it's like, say you come into contact with someone like you did at that bar. Okay, this situation, say a friend comes to you and you want to help them, but you are not in a position to give anything at this moment. What can you do for them? What can you do in that situation to protect both of you?
Well, I mean, obviously, if somebody's in distress and needs like life help,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where we're in a life or death situation, obviously, that's the extreme.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'd want to have like resources to him or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking just like somebody's having a bad day and reaching out and needs to talk, if I'm needing to talk with somebody and I reach out to them and they say, hey, they text me back or something and say, hey, I can't talk right now. I'm in meetings all day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can we talk tomorrow? I don't get personally hurt by it and say, oh, they don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people not taking it personal from the other side, but you can't predict or control how people are going to react to you when you say you're not available. They're going to do what they're going to do, and that's their story, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I suggest is that I am true and I'm honest on with them. Mm-hmm. So if I say, you know, if my sister Tammy needs to talk, I say, babe, I can't talk right now. I've got this going on. Are you okay? Mm-hmm. Like, are we in emergency mode, or are we just in yucky mode? Not that she does that, but just as
you just want to know what's going on.
And if it's like, you know, because if there's like something, you know, where something happens where you need to, right then that's a different story. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, just being honest, I think that's the hard conversation, is really telling people where you really are. And here's the thing, like I said, you can't control how people are going to react to you. Mm-hmm. You know, if you decide to start adjusting your life, like we are, and developing and trying to, you know, be the best you can be and do this work in the mud. Yeah. Not everybody is going to want to be around for the dirt. Not everybody's going to appreciate the fact that you're walking through the mud. And remembering that that's their story is, you know, interesting. People, you know, with my story, you know, that obviously was a big surprise for some people. Yeah. Not for others, but it was a big thing to talk about. Well, when people reacted, I was trying my best to remember that's their story, not mine. Yeah. They're telling me their fear. And if just as an entrepreneur, this happens as well. If you tell someone I have this dream to start a business, they'll go, but what about, they're talking about their fear and their life experience. And they're trying to help. Most of the time they're trying to help you.
Yeah. Because they want to protect you.
Yes. This is what I experienced. Whoa. You better be careful. This is, you know, and not everybody, most people aren't trying to hurt you. They're just trying to tell you their story and their perspective. Remembering that they're telling their story is a big key. So when I went around and talked with all these people I know, hundreds of people, and I tried to tell everybody in person that I could, or on the phone, or, you know, directly, that I was transitioning, I had to make sure, I called it watered, rested, and fed. I had to make sure I had enough water. I wasn't thirsty. I had enough sleep, and that I was not hungry, because no one needs hangry going on when you're trying to talk about life-changing emotional stuff. Yeah. I was actually in Washington, and I was talking to my sister Tammy and telling her, she was a huge, like, my biggest support. And I mean, she was just, I couldn't even explain how amazing. And I said to her, I don't think I can ever tell grandma and grandpa or the family. I guess I'm never going to go back to California. And she looked at me, and I am a brave person, and I was to the soul, bones, core, terrified. And she said, well, that's not going to happen. And she bought 2 tickets. And she flew with me, pretty much held my hand the whole time, sat out front in a running vehicle, waiting to like see if we just didn't know. And she was there, and I had to, luckily I got to choose on my terms how I talk to people when, and I, and I have a very lucky and blessed and privileged story that it turned out, it wasn't perfect for anybody, but it turned out okay. But I made sure, I tried my best to make sure I was ready to have those conversations. Yeah. So my advice would be is to do the best you can to take care of you, to make sure you're your own version of watered, rested, and fed. Yeah. So that you can step into this new path with other people and hold your own story, your own thing, and not carry theirs. So have your own bags, your own backpack, your own things, but you can't carry everybody with you. They have to carry themselves. So if their story is to be afraid or angry or whatever, that's their bags and their story that they get to choose to carry and hold. You don't have to carry it for them. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's so important. And so what I'm hearing is 2 things here, is that you need to know yourself well enough to know like what you need, the water, rested, and fed. Like, what do you need to have a good day? Do you need meditation? Do you need to be fed? Do you need 8 hours of sleep every night? And if you don't get that, you need to know like, okay, how do I make this better? So you need to know a lot about yourself. And then you also need to have your little emotional toolbox over here of like, all right, I need like, here's a situation. First, I need to just kind of breathe. I need to think through it, think what's going on. I need to assess the situation. I need to see like what emotions are going on, whose energy am I feeling right now, and how to protect your own. So I feel like there's a lot of things going on here, of things that you can do to just make sure that you are in control of yourself and prepare yourself before you go into any of these situations.
Kelsey, that's basically what I paid for every week of therapy for right there. Is like, Drew, you cannot control anybody else. The only thing you can control is you. Yeah. And you're not yet. Are you controlling you? Well, no. Yeah. So the only thing you can do is control, you. And, Kelsey, this, we talk about it and I know it, but sometimes we forget is that we're not going to be perfect in every moment. We're going to get swept up in it. Yeah. There's that little teeny river that you can think, oh, I can cross it, and it sweeps out from under you and can pull you down. Yeah. There's little things you can get caught up in it. It's just, don't beat yourself up if you do. When you recognize it, catch it. And when you know better, do better. Right. Yeah. I could be on the phone. I was on the phone with Verizon the other day, and I was kind of and I was like, you know what? So you're not answering the questions I have. And I go, wait a minute, I'm totally being cranky with you, and I'm not even mad at you. I'm so sorry. You know what? Let's go. And catch it. Yeah. If you can catch it, I'm not saying it's okay. It's not like I was terrible, but it's not saying it's okay to be mean or angry or to people. But if whatever the situation is, if you can catch it, then when you know better, do better. Yeah. And that's it. We've talked about this, noticing it, notice it and go, okay. And then eventually you need to correct it though. Cause if you keep noticing it and noticing you're doing the same thing, I did this and I'm going to keep noticing it for the next year. Well, that's not going to serve you either, but being able to stop, whether it's, stop mentally or actually physically and notice it and then try and recorrect. So when you're in a boat and you're say you're in a speedboat or any type of sailboat, anything, you don't turn the wheel hard. You're going to, that's not a good, it's just tiny little corrections, literally. Right. And you just do this little correction and it gets back on course. So most of the time we just need these little corrections to get on the course we want to be on.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And because I've been now that I've been back for the past couple of days, I mean, I'm coming back from this long trip, and I'm like, I want to do all of these like big self-improvement things, and I all I want to do is like spend all day watching like motivational training videos and writing about things for my website and all this stuff and recording interviews, but I have other stuff I have to do. I can't spend all day doing that yet. So I like this morning I was kind of beating myself up because I got up at 8:30 and I was so tired I slept till 11. I went back to bed. And I was like, well, I mean, I must have really needed it. For one, because I'm having trouble still getting out of bed. I must be really tired. So like I have to kind of think about, okay, sleeping, that is still something I'm doing for myself. And I can't beat myself up over sleeping. In the past, I've been like, oh, sleeping is a waste of time. I mean, I could be doing other stuff. And I beat myself up over sleeping in. But if I had the ability to today and I needed it, then I did that for myself. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do some yoga. So I did just a 5-minute yoga video just to give myself a little something. I think it's just good to have those little things that you can do in that moment. Like, okay, I'm not feeling my best. What's something I could do right now? Could I drink a glass of water? Could I get myself a treat? Could I make myself breakfast? Could I could I read my book for 15 minutes? Can I listen to a podcast on the way to work? Like, what are the ways to make this situation I'm in just a little bit brighter?
That's great. Fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, that's you recognizing, and adjusting. So let's talk about one thing in there. So that's all great. The one piece to consider is for people listening, most likely, is I beat myself up for that. So when we have kids we want to help or inspire people, if we're yelling at them, it's a little. There's some sports where, coaching, like there's people who get inspired by that. But for the most part, if we're yelling at them or telling them everything they're doing wrong, it doesn't feel real good to want to be able to go do it. So, one thing that I've been working on is, when I'm in a relationship, for the most part, I mean, this is my perspective at least, is I treat her very kind and very just really good. So I started in the last couple of years treating myself that way. Because telling myself I stink or I'm not doing it well or I'm lazier, it doesn't actually make me want to do more. It makes me feel terrible.
So true.
So if I'm like, I must have gained like 20 pounds in the last few months, like sitting on my butt doing this work for my company. And I'm like, well, okay, you know what? So what? So start working out this summer. You know what? Big deal. Literally, that's my perspective on it. Okay, so, whatever. You needed to sit on your butt and get that stuff done because it had to get done. And you know what? Yeah. You did what you did to soothe yourself to do it.
Yeah.
So now let's do this. And literally, I don't care.
That's great.
I don't mean to be but I had to tell myself, you are okay, babe. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing right now. So do the best you can, and when you know better, do better. Do the best you can today. I'm doing the best I can today, and then I'm going to do the best I can tomorrow. And then if it doesn't work for me, then I need to adjust the boat, right?
Then you'll just adjust, and then but no harm done. You'll just change it.
Or I could think feel terrible about myself and be insecure and think that things stink because now it's summer.
It's the way that you think about it.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to go at. Do I think it's great that, is it the most ideal situation? Well, no, but also I did what I had to do. Right. So, so basically, I mean, that's just what I think is really being aware of noticing what we have going on and then being kind to ourselves. And I always don't remember what I was watching, but we tell people we love them all the time. Mm-hmm. We tell people how wonderful they are. Hopefully people do that for each other. I mean, I know that I can speak for myself and say I do that. I tell people I love them all the time. Friends, whoever, love doesn't have to be in love. You can love souls. You can, and being kind to people. But do we tell ourselves, man, I'm so proud of you. I love you. You're good looking.
No, thanks.
If you start telling yourself you're good looking, if you look in the mirror and you say, you're good looking, look at you. You're wicked smart. Look what you've achieved. If you start telling yourself that, I mean, honestly, I'm telling you, it may seem a little silly, but you feel better.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's sad how hard that is to do for.
And why is it weird? Why is it
Yeah,
weird?
I don't know, because it's just not something that we're taught to do. Like, we're taught to be kind to other people, but I think a lot of times you feel like, oh, it's selfish to focus on myself. It's selfish to think about how things will be good for me. But you're never really taught that the best way to serve others is to fill yourself up first.
Write that down, because you just did it. You just said it. You did. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, if you can love yourself and be the best version of you, imagine all the love and everything else that can be shared with others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah. Throughout the day, I've been trying to work on that. If I do something, I'll be like, good job. And I'll give myself like a little pat on the back or little something to be like, you're doing a good job. Wow, that was a hard conversation. Like, good job for like going through that. That was really great. You got exactly what you wanted out of it. Congratulations. Just trying to give myself like little somethings. And with how I was feeling about, like, there was something that I was supposed to do this month for myself that I was like, I'm really going to do this. And then I got behind and behind and behind. And finally I was just like, you know what? I don't want to feel bad about not doing this. I'm just going to let it go. It'll get done when it needs to get done. But right now is not the time, because I have other stuff I have to get done first. And then I'll be able to focus more on this task. So I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm going to let it go.
Wow. I tell you this often, that I don't want to say I'm proud of you, because it seems like what you do has a benefit to me, or I'm somehow judging what you're doing. So I'm not proud of you. I'm proud for you. Like,
thank you.
I am so happy for you that you're doing this the way you're doing it, and that you are showing up for yourself, because that's what you're doing. And you're showing up for yourself with love and kindness and respect. And to have a podcast, have sharing this, to be talking about it, to be sharing it with whoever and however you are, is going to ripple effect. So
thank you.
When you show up this way, when you do this, it ripple effects, and you will have no idea who that is going to affect. And then the people it affects from that, and then people from that.
Yeah.
You have no idea what that will do. And I'll tell you what, showing up in this way is more rewarding than anything that I have ever done.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable. And I just wanted to tell you that, I see it and I notice it, and, I'm happy for you.
Thank you. And I think it's good to remember, like, it's a process. Living a positively delighted life is not about always being happy, not about always being positive, but you're always trying to improve. Because even as I'm sitting here now and you're telling me, you're like, I'm really proud for you. And it's like, you're doing this. My first instinct, what I almost said was, oh, well, I'm trying. And it's like, well, no, I'm doing.
Right.
I'm doing. And it's like, my mind is like, oh, I'm trying. No, I'm not trying. I'm doing. And it's like, you still have to make that shift in your mind. So it's every day is a process, but I stopped myself before I said it. I thought it, but I didn't say it. So it's just kind of like a process every day.
That's amazing. And I'll tell you, I think that a lot of times in society, from my perspective, a lot of times men are allowed to have that power, to have that perspective, to have that confidence. And women a lot of times are seen. I mean, if you look at like the corporate world, business, women in power, business, politics, stuff like that, it's not seen as a positive always.
Yeah.
And so that's got to change. And so if you keep showing up this way and it's going to change. It is, I think, hopefully starting to change, and it will continue, because first of all, it's ridiculous. And second, if you just, like you said, just keep showing up the way you are for you.
Yeah.
The ripple effect is going to happen, and loving yourself, having that power, and telling yourself no, because I saw it when you said that, is, we actually are on podcast, but I can see your video, and you had your power, and it was like, I'm not trying, I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I could see your energy and feel it. And it's like, but guess what? You are, and I know you are, because, we've been talking for quite some time now, and sharing those stories. And so the next, you might find, down the road that the road signs come in that are now going to be from a woman of, being accepted from a woman with power. And it'll be interesting to get your perspective on that as we go with this, because remember, people are telling their story, but to keep it with the confidence and also the kindness is tough. I mean, keeping my positive attitude and behavior, but also kindness and respectful. And I don't do it in every moment, there's also that defense side where I'm afraid, where I'm, and trying to make sure I'm safe and things like that. So, it's something we try every day, and we do. And, one of my friends just sent me a text this morning that said, I have this card that you gave me. I gave her a card. She has it up on her wall in her office, and she looks at it every day. And she's a behavioral, in the behavioral science world. And she said, it keeps her positive, and she really appreciates that when she's going through some of the hard tasks at work. And I thought, wow, like, I don't know, just, you never know where your ripple effect is.
You never know. And it's really amazing to think about. Like, I was having a conversation with my boyfriend yesterday, and we were talking about how I'd taken the StrengthsFinder test a few months ago. And in my top strengths, I was like, I have positivity and learning. And he's like, do they have weaknesses on this test? I was like, it's more like just your lowest strengths. I don't think they really call them weaknesses. I think my last one was like confrontation. And he's like, I find that kind of hard to believe. I've seen you deal with confrontation in a very good way in a lot of situations recently. And I was like, well, and it's because I've really worked on it. I'd be curious to see if it's one of my weaknesses now.
Oh yeah, I would say you are grabbing the bull by the horns on that one. It doesn't still have to be our favorite. I mean, and I think you and I might have discussed where maybe it isn't either one of our favorite.
Yeah, but it's not as hard now, though.
Right.
I understand it more. I mean, I think my hardest thing is I just want to pick up the phone and call someone. If I'm having to email, I'm like, I'm just like gonna reread this forever, make sure the tone is right. But if it's over phone, I feel like every time I'm doing it, I'm just being honest, and I'm trying to just I'm trying to, before I have a conversation, if I'm really mad about something, I'll try to kind of calm down and be like, well, they don't know that I'm mad. They don't know that they did anything. So let's just calm down, and let's just tell them like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Can you tell me if that's kind of where it's coming from? Is this right? Can we talk through this? And it's worked out so far.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm so excited to continue these conversations with you and keep, going through this together and developing this. And I think it's been extremely rewarding on my side. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been such an amazing conversation, and I feel like we've covered a lot of really good topics about protecting your power and your emotional toolbox. And I have some rapid fire questions for you if you're up for it.
Hit me with them.
Okay, so one thing that makes you happy.
When Ralphie's sleeping.
Name one thing that you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for, this sounds weird maybe, but I'm so grateful that I got to be me.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I feel lucky.
Let's see. Favorite place you've ever visited?
Oh, that is really hard because we travel full time for a living. I love the ocean. I love it so much.
Okay.
I would say I probably love this Huntington Beach, Dog Beach.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And then your favorite book?
Just one?
Yeah, if you just pick one book, just one of your favorite books.
I love The Alchemist.
Oh,
it's a really great
love that book. I just read it.
I love that book.
So good. A podcast that you're listening to right now?
Liv Hayden's The Millennials, Adulting the Right Way.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. I'll check that out. Something
Well, I was also interviewed on it, so that's
well, there you go. Well, then we'll have to listen to it now.
I guess.
Something that you do for fun.
Something I do for fun. My gosh, I work a lot. What do I do for fun? That's okay. So first of all, this is where we need to have a fix. If I can't come up with something I'm doing for fun.
Yeah, you do some more fun stuff.
Well, this sounds weird, but I meet with people and talk with people. That's actually fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love just talking with either friends or strangers and and having like deep conversations. It fulfills me and I enjoy it.
I love it.
Greatly.
So. Cool. And it's something on your bucket list.
Well, I definitely want to go travel to Japan alone. I've been once, but cool. I want to go back alone and travel. I absolutely just want to do that so badly.
It's wonderful. I think those are good job on the rapid fire questions.
Medium job.
Well, you know what? You've identified something you do for fun, so I think we'll start from there.
Okay.
And then where is a good place for people to reach you? I know that you have a book that you were a part of recently, if you want to mention that.
Yeah. So I collaborated on a book, Positive Minded People. That book is on Amazon. I wrote one of the chapters, and it's my story.
Very good.
Thank you so much. And then I'm also on Instagram, Solo Soul Journey. So SOLOSOUL Journey. And then I have a website. It's just my name, drewbensen.com, DREWBENSEN. It's not the common way to spell Benson. So drewbensen.com. I own a company in Seattle, Washington. It's a dog walking company, close to home pet services. And yeah, that's about, occasionally we'll do retreats. I've done some in Seattle and in Southern California with Jody Ferris, a pretty popular yoga instructor,
nice.
Practitioner in Southern California. Yeah, I travel full time in my RV, 2017 Winnebago with my dog Ralphie. That's it.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was an honor to be here, and thank you so much for going through this journey together. It's been my privilege and honor, like I said, to know you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode with Drew Bensen. Be sure to grab a copy of his book, Positive Minded People, over on Amazon. I will link up to the book in the show notes for this episode over at positivelydelighted.com. If you are interested in hiring Drew as your life coach, which I highly recommend, fill out the contact form on his website at drewbensen.com. Bensen spelled BENSEN. Or send him a message on Instagram over at Solo Soul Journey. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Positively Delighted Show. Be sure to head over to positivelydelighted.com to get the show notes for this episode. If you liked the show so far and you've been learning a lot from the content, I would love if you could go to iTunes or your favorite podcast listening app and leave a review. You would be my favorite person ever. Thank you so much again, and I hope you have a positively delighted day. See you next time.